Roguelike is the best genre, but before I can explain why, I've got to explain what they are in the first place. You see, it all started back in 1980, before the GOAT LeBron was even in the womb.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine.
A little game called Rogue was released. It's a turn-based dungeon crawler that you can go and play right now, which has two key elements: permadeath and procedural generation. Permadeath means that whenever the player dies, they have to start from the very beginning, and procedural generation means that the levels, encounters, and item drops are generated automatically with every playthrough, providing endless possibilities. This amalgamation of game mechanics birthed roguelikes, the best genre in gaming. Kinda. I say kinda because it technically spawned two genres, roguelikes and roguelites. The only difference between the two being that roguelites contain meta progression, meaning that you can unlock permanent upgrades between runs. Some of the most famous and highly praised roguelikes of all time, like Hades, The Binding of Isaac, and Slay the Spire, would fall into this category, so I think the distinction between these two genres is as pointless as Draymond Green on a good night. So many people, including Steam itself, just lump them together. Now that we've established what roguelikes are, we can get into the meat and potatoes of why they're so good. The first and most obvious reason is their replayability. Roguelikes and replayability go together like Jack Hanma and steroids because it is literally injected into their bloodstreams. The items or power-ups that the players receive each run are completely randomized, and combining that with randomized enemy encounters ensures that no two runs will be exactly the same. However, regardless of the items you receive or the foes on your path, the one constant among all runs is your goal, which is to win. And if you want to do that, you gotta use the items you get throughout a run to the best of their abilities, which means you'll probably have to make use of synergies. In the context of roguelikes, synergies are two or more items that when used together can produce a combined effect greater than the individual items. Vampire Survivors is the most simple example, with many weapons having built-in synergies with items, allowing you to evolve said weapon after getting it to max level while holding the corresponding item. Having said that, most games have a more indirect way of providing synergies to the player. In Slay the Spire, strength is a stat that adds damage to your attacks based on how much of it you have. Heavy Blade is an attack that is affected by strength multiple times over. So if you get a bunch of cards that can give you strength, it can quickly become an unstoppable force. Aside from items, the character or weapon you start with also has a huge influence on your playstyle and what kind of build you try to make. In Brotato, Ghost is a character that takes almost twice as much damage as other characters, but he has a huge amount of dodge to make up for it. His playstyle is all about avoiding hits as much as possible. On the other hand, Bull is a character that has no weapons and his only method of damage is by taking damage himself, which causes him to explode. His whole playstyle is about headbutting enemies like a boxer trying to speedrun CTE and ensuring that you're tanky enough and have as much healing as possible to actually survive the head trauma. Moving on from build construction, let's talk about how enemy encounters can impact runs just as much as their items and character. Brotato is once again a great example of this. On the game's highest difficulty, there are three special waves which are either hordes or elites. Hordes are self-explanatory, they're just waves with more enemies, while elites are essentially mini-bosses. If your single target damage is trash, then elites will rip you a new one, and if your crowd control is trash, then the horde waves will rip you a bunch of new ones. This also alludes to another factor that makes roguelikes so replayable, which is difficulty. If you're looking for a challenge, then you'll find roguelikes to be the perfect genre for you. After spending hours upon hours slowly gaining the knowledge and skill required to achieve victory for the very first time, you'll realize the game was on soft the entire time and just took a honey pack.
Kai, bro, my girlfriend just left, bro. I need you.
Let's take Hades 2 as an example. The base game itself is pretty damn hard, taking most players dozens of hours to beat for the first time, but it only gets harder from there. After you slay the final boss, you gain access to the Oath of the Unseen, which allows you to raise the difficulty even further by taking vows. These vows range from being very forgiving, such as the vow of debt that just makes shop items more expensive, but there are also a ton of vows way more punishing. Just for starters, the vow of forfeit turns your first item in each region into an onion. The vow of scars completely negates all healing, and the vow of time adds a timer, forcing you to speedrun each stage before the timer runs out like you're trying to end up in a summoning salt video. As you take vows, you increase your fear level, which is pretty much just a difficulty indicator. You're rewarded with a statue after beating the game at 8, 16, and 32 fear. Let me tell you, when I beat 32 fear, my heart was beating faster than Hank having a panic attack. I thought I was gonna die IRL, bro. It was serious shit, man. And going even further, if you beat it at max fear, you're rewarded with the ultimate bragging rights, as only a handful of people in the entire world have ever done it, and it would take even the best players hundreds or thousands of hours to beat. What makes this even better is that this absurd difficulty is completely optional. You can experience everything the game has to offer without ever making it frustratingly difficult, which can't be said for certain games. What also can't be said for certain games is the fact that you can get all of this content for just $30. Although it isn't something inherent to the genre, because of how easy it is to add content to roguelikes, the vast majority are indies, which means their prices are way below the AAA standard. Balatro was nominated for Game of the Year despite being a whole $25 Despite it being a whole $25 less than the next cheapest nominee, which was a $40 DLC for a game that was already $60. While I've personally never tried it, almost everyone I've seen praises the game for how addictive it is, and I spent more minutes playing this $15 game than Joel Embiid has played in his entire career, showing how much content these games can provide for so little. These are games you could play until LeBron finally retires at the age of 77 that you could get for the price of some knockoff AirPods. But now I'm sure you're thinking, even if these games have endless replayability, perfect difficulty progression, and give you the most bang for your buck, it doesn't mean anything if the gameplay is as boring as Firewatch. Don't at me. And let me tell you, they can go toe to toe with the absolute best of them. The roguelike genre basically serves as a template for all types of games to use that can amplify themselves to the next level. If you want games where skill is your biggest asset and even the worst builds can kill gods, then Hades and Dead Cells are the games for you. Otherwise, if you want to do a complete 180 and become the god yourself by creating the best build possible to destroy all of your foes, then games like Brotato and Vampire Survivors are perfect for you. But maybe you would rather use your mind to destroy all your foes rather than your power. In that case, strategy games like Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon will stimulate your brain like no other. With that being said, I hope I proved to everyone watching that roguelikes stand head and shoulders above any other genre. And if you're someone who either hasn't tried them or hasn't been a fan of the ones you've tried, I encourage you to give them a chance, and I'm sure you won't regret it. Anyways, with that being said, if you liked the video, then please drop a like and please subscribe and comment your favorite roguelike, because I have nothing better to do than reading all of them.